Okay, somebody sent me an email this past week about 1 John 2, 2 and 3 or something. I can't remember the verses. Doesn't matter. And he said, well, I heard a preacher saying this about it. And so I sent him my commentary of both verses because he was concerned about verse 3, we'll say. I think it was 1 John 2, 2 and 3 or something, whatever. Anyway, but he was concerned about what the preacher said in verse 3. And so I said, well, you can't just analyze verse 3 without verse 2. You got to take things in context. You just pull something out of the Bible and say, here, that can mean anything. And he read it and he says, that's absolutely right. He had forgotten that. And, you know, it doesn't matter who. Several people read my commentaries and they check them for typos and stuff. And this is a guy that read that commentary and checked it for typos. He had just forgotten that I'd said this. And he said, this preacher is adamant that after you're saved, you must prove it by doing good works. And I said, then everybody would lose their salvation. Everybody. Every single person would lose their salvation. Because if you have to prove your salvation after being saved, you were never saved in the first place by grace. Because salvation is a linear thing. It starts here, but it goes on forever. If you have to do something in order to be saved at any point from now until your death, then it was never of grace. And Paul says it is by grace through faith. But if I have to do, that means that I'm not really saved until I have done. And you're only done with it when you are done. Okay? If you think it through, just think it through logically. Any point after salvation, if there's something you have to do or not do in order to keep that salvation, it was up to you and not Jesus Christ. And that diminishes the cross of Christ and the efficacious shedding of his blood. It completely diminishes it. And it says that you are more important than what God has done in him. That's what that says.
So that evidence, that's for others of
that's
our
right.
salvation. So they could see it and also...
Well, you would hope.
Right.
Yeah, but it's not necessary. There's nothing in the Bible that says that the guy on the cross next to Jesus got down and did something good before to prove that he didn't do anything, okay? And there are people that receive Jesus in a foxhole and they're blown up 5 seconds later. They didn't do anything and they didn't prove anything. And the only people that knew that they were saved was the guy that told them about Jesus the day before, that heard him make his confession, and then God himself, okay? You know, you got to think things through. And it doesn't matter if it's the 2 seconds before the bomb blows that guy up or if it's the 25 years after somebody goes, makes his profession and goes to church and lives his life for Jesus. It doesn't matter. That time interval is not what's important. What is important is what Christ did and the change that happened in you, which is the sealing of the Spirit. Okay, that's the important thing. Anyway, keep thinking it through. Theology is logical. It will always be logical because God is the author of logic. He does nothing that is chaotic. He does nothing that is arbitrary. He does nothing that is vindictive. He is a God of logic and order. And if you can keep that in your mind, and if you don't understand that, just go back and watch the Genesis 1:1 sermon. It's very clear in there that God is a God of order, of harmony, of logic, and everything he will do is based on his eternal nature because he is outside of time. We're looking at everything from our perspective as happening, my father let me down and therefore God is going to let me down. I'm a terrible husband and therefore everything is from our perception of what is going on in the stream of time. That's not the way that God works. God is eternal. And when he makes a decree, it will never change, ever. Did you have something?